There are so many interesting, horrifying, or downright weird things in this big world of ours.
Each week, we'll bring you a new true crime story that has little to no coverage in English.
Let us do the translations so you don't have to.
I am Petra.
I'm Victoria.
And I'm Laura. And judging by that order, it means that it is my turn this week to bring you a tale of murder. Okay, well, it's not really murder this week. It's a bit. Okay, not fun. Well, it is kind of fun. I mean, I like archaeology and history and stuff. So we have our oldest case, technically. Yeah, this week. So, as I said last week, we're going to be in Belize. And just to share a little bit about Belize, it is a country in Central America, and it's a southerly neighbor to Mexico and a northerly and easterly neighbor to Guatemala. And it's a smallish country at about 22,970 square kilometers, or 8,867 square miles. And like this is all according to Wikipedia. So in a population of 441,471 as of 2022. So quite small. But there's a lot of history here, and like compared to the time period that we're going to be talking about, like in the Maya period of occupation, there was about like 2 million people living in Belize, which is about the population, I think, of Paris. So just think of that kind of condensed also into that many square kilometers and square miles. Yeah.
I'm also just surprised that it's so few people living there
Yeah,
today. I thought it was like, I don't know. I didn't have
like
any like number in mind, but I thought it was more.
yeah, it's less
Yeah.
than in Helsinki.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like when I visited there. So, okay, the reason why I also did this episode is because like I visited there recently in January as part of vacation, and yeah, like it's pretty sparsely populated. There's quite a lot of foresty areas and stuff, and different islands, and this type of stuff. So, yeah, but back in those days when people were, having like burn in slash agriculture and whatnot, and I guess the forests weren't as thick back then, and there was more people living in this country. So, yeah. Hmm. Did you guys pull up a map or something of Belize?
I'm about to, but I've done that before because
Yeah, yeah,
we talked
yeah,
about Belize quite a lot. So
yeah. Okay, so moving on. So during the time of 1500 BC, the Maya flourished until about 900-ish, give or take, whatever, a few decades AD. And there are other sources that some say that the Maya archaeological sites in Orange Walk, so Orange Walk is a city in Belize, date back, so these particular sites date back to 2000 BC. So it was kind of a bit difficult to pin down the definite dates of when the Maya were most active and, the dates that they were active too. But that's kind of what I found. So either 1500 or 2000 BC to about 900 is like the limits, approximate limits. Um, the main group of Maya today, so there were more different language groups of Maya back in the day, even up till recently in the 1800s. But now it can be broken down into three groups that inhabit either Guatemala, Belize, or like other Central American countries, and Mexico. And those three groups are the Yucatec, the Quechua, and the Mopan. And because some of these groups were mainly in Guatemala, I just wanted to mention that, like, more recently there was this Maya genocide in the 1970s. Yeah, and it's like Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that. It's also known as the Silent Holocaust or the Guatemalan Genocide. And it was a US backed Guatemalan military operation where about 166,000 Maya were massacred. So, just an FYI, that there's some history there too in Guatemala with the Maya. So,
In the 1970s.
yes, I think it was like
Wow.
1960s or 70s. So,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
That is
around there.
pretty recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also feel that there's not enough about this kind of events in history books because I have never heard of this.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, start date 1960, end date 1996. So kind of ongoing, or yeah, well, ongoing for quite a long time, 36 years. So yeah, maybe I'll cover that at some point. I don't know if I have enough time to cover that, but it would probably be like a multi-part series or something. But it is definitely a crime against humanity, so it kind of fits the premise of this podcast. But basically, US sticking their fingers where they shouldn't have and other stuff. So yeah, joy.
That's a rare occasion.
I know it never happens. Never.
Yeah.
Never, never. Especially nowadays. It's very, very uncommon for that to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Carrying on to get like a greater understanding of Maya culture and the importance of like cave structures that we'll be specifically discussing today, we need to kind of delve a bit into their mythology. So, and why we're going to be talking about caves is because there's one particular cave that I visited during my vacation that I wanted to, discuss because I thought it was interesting, and there's murder involved, so, or sacrifice involved. There's going to be a lot of mythology, so just bear with me if you're not into that type of stuff, but then a little bit of archaeology and, whatever. So, the most important tree in Maya culture is the ceiba tree, or the kapok, or the silk cotton tree. And this tree is a really good source of fiber that can be used to stuff like mattresses, pillows, flotation devices. And like one source even said that, for instance, during like the Titanic, this could have been easily used in flotation devices, for instance, because it's like this material that is highly well, it floats and stuff when you stuff it into things. So, yeah, kind of
It was
interesting.
used or it could have been used.
He was like, "Oh yeah, this was most likely used." So I don't know. I
Okay.
didn't delve deeper into it. So I was kind of like, "That's pretty interesting," because this type of tree, is also found in Africa and some Asia and like Asian countries, I think too. There's like different species of it, but they all have this kind of cottony fiber. And if you wanted to actually look up the tree, it's spelled CEIBA, or KAPOK is the tree spelling. So, and you listeners can also look along with me. So yes, so like other world trees in like other mythologies, like Yggdrasil in Norse mythology. According to mythology, the Seba spans throughout all worlds. So like Yggdrasil, that spans through, the upper world and whatever. So does the Seba tree. And according to the mythology, it reaches all 13 levels of the upper world, the one level of the middle world, and all 9 levels of the underworld. So the trunk that we see like on Earth is supposed to be the portion that we see in the middle world, or like the living world. And the tree's limbs and canopy expand up towards the sky into the upper world, whereas the roots dig down into the earth, and those are towards the underworld. So probably one of the reasons why this tree is said to span all levels of the upper, mid, and lower worlds is that this tree can grow to reach about 60 meters or 200 feet tall. And it has a habit of like rising well above the canopy in the rainforest. So it's kind of this umbrella, if you will, up above a canopy when it reaches, like, goes past the normal canopy of the rainforest, and then it kind of just, chills there on top. So it's like really fucking tall. And then remember this root structure point, that like it has really kind of cool root structure where it just spreads out and down. And This is very important also for the mythology later when we delve into the structures of caves that I'll mention later. So just FYI. Any questions now? Or
I'm
just
just looking at pictures of this tree. No questions. But it looks
okay,
really
yeah.
like, yeah, interesting. Yeah, that was not a very good comment. I'm sorry. Just looking at the photos, like scrolling down on
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah. Okay, so another one of the Mayan beliefs is that still bodies of water and caves were kind of liminal spaces between, the living world and the dead world. So it's like this kind of entry point into the underworld, and the underworld is generally called Shibalba, which translates to place of fright. So their hell, even though they don't really have a heaven or a hell, they have, different it's all cyclical in the Maya religion and mythology. You have like the calendars, like the Maya calendar and whatever, like, oh, it was going to end in 2012 and blah 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 blah. Well, that's just like one period ended. It's not that that's the end of the world. It just continues. Okay, now that that period's done, the next one begins. And I think I mentioned it later, but just off the top of my head, I think we're in the third or the fourth age currently, if I remember correctly. So
So
yeah.
basically, it's just the same way we calculate our, weeks and years. Like
Yeah.
31st December is not the end of the world. At the time, we start
Yeah.
all over again.
Yeah,
First
exactly.
January.
Yeah. But it's a bit like longer cycles. They like kind of planned it out
Yeah.
more, like maybe like planning it in like terms of millennia or something. So, yeah.
Yeah.
As I said, these bodies of water or caves were not really viewed as quote unquote like inanimate places, but they're like actual physical manifestations of the spiritual world. So, if you were to go to one of these places, it would be like to going to visit the god of rain, for instance, chalk, or, like these things that, for instance, where you'd go to this terrifying place where death and disease and old age, sacrifice, decay, and foul smells are supposed to come from, but there are also specific gods associated with these things, and they live and are supposed to dwell in these caves. So once you go there, it's like I said, it's a frightening place. So when you brave to go into a cave, it's kind of like you're facing the gods and whatever, and you're going into the underworld, like actually. So I thought this was kind of important too, to kind of share like the creation story of Maya mythology, how humans were created, because in their mythology, humans are like current humans are basically the successful creation. First they were made out of like one element, then they're made of another, and now like the current humans are made out of corn. That was like the people of corn, is kind of, I don't know if you've heard this, but yeah, so in their belief system, that's why corn is so important, because we are people made out of corn, according
Oh my
to
God, I'm
Maya.
just realizing that I know nothing about Mayan culture, or like very
Yeah.
little. All of this is just
Yeah.
totally new information.
Okay, well, this is educational then. And by the way, like I okay, I used to study archaeology back in like my undergrad. Like I had to do anthropology with, and one of the professors was his specialty was Mexico and Central America. So a lot of this was already familiar for me, but to condense this into like a small podcast, it was insane amount of detail. So I'm really skimming the very, very top of it. Like I could easily go into like multi parts, but yeah, you could write a thesis about this easily. So yeah. So going on to the creation story. So this is like an excerpt from the Smithsonian educational resources that I found, because there's also multiple accounts of the creation story, like slight variations, but this one was nice that it had the transcript already there. So here it goes. So this is an account of the beginning, when all was stillness, silence, and water. There was no light, no land, no plants, no people, and no animals. 6 deities covered in green and blue feathers lay in the primordial waters. The framer and the shaper, Tepu, Quetzal, serpent, and Shpiakok, and Shmukane. These deities helped Heart of Sky, also known as Hurakan, create the earth. Their spirit, essence, and their miraculous power gave the earth its creative energy. Now that the land had a heart, and they called it Heart of Earth, to separate the sky from the earth, they planted a tall ceiba tree. And so, once again, the ceiba comes back as the important tree. And they made space for all life. The roots penetrated deep into the 9 levels of Maya underworld. The trunk was on the surface of the land, and the branches reached up to the 13 levels of the Maya upper world. The plants were next created to live on earth, and then the animals were created. But the animals did not speak and could not worship. So the deities decided to create human beings from mud. But these first humans had no souls and were not good keepers of the day. They destroyed them in a great flood. The deities tried another time and created humans from wood. The wooden people could not worship either, so they were destroyed. Those that survived are said to have become the monkeys in the trees. The sky and the earth now existed, but there was no sun and no moon. A vain bird called Seven Macaw claimed to be the sun and the moon, but this was not true. 2 amazing twins, Hunahpu and Spalonke, defeated Seven Macaw by shooting him with darts. The hero twins were conceived when their mother, Ishkik, spoke to the decapitated 2 head of their father, Hunahpu, who spit on her hand from a cacao tree. Hunahpu had been killed by the lords of Xibalba in the underworld. The hero twins became great ball players, and to bring their father back to life, they challenged the lords of the underworld to a game in Xibalba. The twins were permitted to play the game only after they had survived the dangerous trials set from them in the underworld. So using these great skills and cunning, twins won the ball game, and this allowed their slain father to come back to life as the maize god. The hero twins left Xibalba and climbed back to the surface of the earth. They continued into the sky, becoming the sun and the moon. Now that the sun and the moon were in the sky and illuminated the earth, the deities created the final form of human beings using white and yellow corn. Corn is the precious substance that ultimately succeeds in producing and enduring humans. So that's the the kind of overall mythology. So you saw like lots and different like elements that are important in the Maya culture, right? I picked some stuff out now. Any thoughts?
Yeah, the ball game part was really interesting. That like what?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's also another point that I didn't actually include in here. But so the rubber tree, like actual gum, comes from a
Mhm.
tree from the sap, and yeah. So you basically cut into the trunk of this like rubber tree, and you can actually make chewing gum out of it. So the modern chewing gum is actually originally from there, and
Mm,
yeah, was originally like a Maya invention, basically.
it's cool.
Um, and then you can also make, big balls of it, and then that's rubber that we know today, and that's where we make tires and stuff. And there was also this game. I don't know if you've seen this animated movie. The thing that I can only think of that maybe you've seen this Road to El Dorado. Have you ever seen this animated movie?
I don't
I'm not
think I
sure,
have. I've
but
heard
I
the
think
title
in
for
fact I
sure.
think I know it. Like the poster
Yeah. Yeah.
is pretty
So in
old.
that Yeah, like in that, it's quite old. Like I watched it when I was a kid, and I just
Yeah, yeah.
remember that they played one of these ball games. There was like this small like hoop, like
Oh yeah, I know this. Yeah, sorry, I
yeah,
realized
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, and you play with your hips, and yeah, so that's kind of what they're talking about with the ball game.
Ah, okay.
And there's other, like I said, other variations of this creation myth, and one of them is that the twins were playing the game so loudly that they disturbed the gods of the underworld. And there's like different stories that come out of this too. But yeah, the game is quite important in the Maya culture. And there's also like a kind of debate going on whether it was, you have 2 factions of people fighting, uh either to appease the gods or to settle like disputes between different groups of people. you'd play a game, but then it's debated whether the winners were sacrificed or the losers were sacrificed. Because, like, of course, if you were a loser, then why would the gods want that? You know, like you want to be,
Mm.
you want the best people to be sacrificed. So it's kind of like there's a bit of debate whether it was, the winners that were actually sacrificed or the losers. But yeah, that's just a aside about the ball game. But yeah.
Is there, sorry, it's not very important maybe, but is there some prediction about the next sort of generation of humans? What are they going to be made out of after corn?
No,
Or is this the
I think
perfect form now?
I think this is the perfect form because, like, if you go to any of those cultures, like even in like Mexico and all the different, Central American cultures, corn is still heavily prevalent. Like corn tortillas and those types of things are eaten all the time, and like different types of corn foods. So I don't think it's gonna go away. And I mean, there was even, I remember, like, was it also found? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. This like skull shaping that happens with infants. They kind of like would put a board on the infant because infants' heads, they're malleable. They're not set until well, yeah, they're not hard basically. And so they're quite malleable. And what they would do is they'd put a board and basically shape the head to be long, kind of like a stalk of corn.
Mm.
So I don't remember if that's like a actual account that they would do that too. So it would be shaped like corn, so kind of like this godly appearance or whatever, or if they ever found the background evidence of why they would do this. But is quite common to see some skulls that are shaped into like an oblong kind of shape. Yeah.
And isn't there like kind of alien discussion? Like someone has
Ah,
found
yeah.
these and thought that they were alien, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they do kind of look a bit alien, like in the sense of, this long kind of like
Yeah,
oblong
yeah,
Mhm.
skull,
exactly.
but it's, yeah, it was part of the culture. And it could be taken that, yeah, because corn is also shaped like that, that they, corn people, you can kind of make a bit of a
Mhm.
connection there. I don't know if that's actually like a legitimate fact or not, but I think I remember reading about it somewhere that was maybe a possible explanation of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty logical. Wow, this is super interesting. I had no idea about any of this.
Mm.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys to like look up some mythology in other countries, but I was like, okay, that could be like a 5-hour episode, so we're gonna
Yeah,
maybe
we
not
should
do that.
Whole
do
season.
Yeah, yeah,
separate episodes about different mythologies. I have books about the
yeah. It could be
Finnish
cool.
and Japanese mythology at home, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, like I said, there's many slight variations of the Maya origin story, but in the beginning, we have water, we have, and then like the cave, which can symbolize, a womb. It is like, said to be the origin of life, life came out of the cave, etc. So, and as I said in earlier, in true Maya fashion, and being cyclical, you kind of start and end your life in the cave. For instance, souls of the dead are required to journey through all 9 levels of Shibalba, suffering numerous tests of wisdom and courage, and for even the sun god himself to, the sun sets every day. So for him to successfully complete his journey through Shibalba each night, he goes into the form of the jaguar god in the underworld for him to rise again the next day. So it's kind of this, cyclical thing happening in the cave. Shibalba, is the place where everybody must go at the end of their life to be born again. So
So what's up with the upper world or like their sort of heaven?
good question.
When do they
I'm
go
not
there?
sure. I don't, yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Is
I
that
need to
where
have
the
a part
gods
two.
live?
Could be, yeah. I didn't actually go into that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I
No,
totally
that's
forgot.
okay.
I'm like, in true gothic fashion, I'm like, yeah, fuck it, let's deal with the dark stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's more
Um,
interesting anyways.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, as you can probably gather, caves are kind of important to Maya people, and so is water. Because I mean, everything started with water. I mean, you can always draw these kind of conclusions and connections between, and ostriches in my face. You can kind of gather these connections between many different religions, even though, like, nowadays, the earth was nothing. It was a primordial soup, and then things came out of, whatever. So there's always some commonalities between religions, and
Yeah.
I think for good reason. To tie all of these motifs I discussed above with the cave that I'll also be covering, and the cave is called Actun, Tunichil, Muknal, which means the cave of the stone sepulture or sepulcher. Sepulchre? Anyway, there's many ways you can pronounce that word. But it basically means sepulchre means tomb or crypt. So that kind of ties into what we discuss later as well. This cave is located on a tributary of Roaring Creek near a village called Tea Kettle. And this is close to the city of San Ignacio. So this cave was thought to be in use from the early Classic period, which was about 300 to 600 AD, to the late Classic period, which is 700 to 950 AD. And it was rediscovered in the year 1986 when a burial chamber was found. So, notably, other Mayan sites like Chechem Ha and the Petroglyph Cave have these like stele or tall sculpted kind of stone shafts or slabs. So, kind of like think of them kind of like a little bit of like a totem pole or something like this kind of carved pole, basically. And they're often also associated with like these low circular kind of stones, and they're referred to as like altars. So one of these stele or slate stabs was also found, and it's about a meter tall. It was found in a small chamber overlooking an active stream passage in this cave, and that was kind of like, interesting. And there's like a primitive face carved onto one of the sides of the edges of the slab, and it has been carved and scalloped in kind of like a way to remind the observer that it looks like a stingray spine. The actual purpose of these stele or these altars and these, these slabs are kind of unknown today. But it's significant because there's two other sites along with this Actun Tunichil Muknal cave, or it's also referred to the ATM cave, um, that out of these three sites total in Belize that contain stele, they're major burial caves. So it kind of like is an interesting fact that they have these stele, and then hey, there's also lots of burials in these caves, so maybe there's a connection there. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And also the stingray spine comes back a bit later too, so remember that. Any questions now? You can also maybe pull up the ATM cave on Google
Mm.
Yeah, I'm
if you
just
want to
looking at the
see.
pictures as you talk.
Yeah, and
Get into.
yeah, and another thing to mention too that I didn't have any pictures from this cave because you're not allowed to take any cameras. I think as of 2012 or something, because there was a tourist who dropped a camera on one of the skulls and fractured some teeth. So you're not allowed to take anything into the cave except for just a hard hat and a headlamp. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's no chance of anything falling or breaking. So I don't have any photos of this cave. And I think if I remember correctly, there's like 23 or 25 different tour guides that are only allowed to do these tours. And they were trained in the early 2000s, I think like in 2005 or something. And they haven't had any training sessions after that. So it's still the same 20 something guys giving these tours. And so it's not like overpopulated to take a tour. It's actually, not difficult to get a tour, but it's like they don't allow a lot of people per day into the caves. So it's quite interesting too. So it's good that they're conserving the cave. Yeah. Yeah.
What if they
But if
retire?
it's kind of or die.
or die.
That's also that was also one of the common jokes from the tour guide. Yeah, and we'll meet some of the other tour guides who know we used to be 20 something, but now we're only this 25, for instance. But you'll see what happened to the other guys, the ha ha ha
Hmm.
ha,
Hmm.
this stuff. But
I was thinking there could be like a murder story where there can be only 20 guides. So unless someone quits or dies, no new ones will be allowed. And then there is someone who's like,
yeah,
I wanna be a guide, and
yeah, yeah,
happens then.
yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, some of them were I mean, they're all kind of like middle-aged, it was like 40s, 50s, so maybe yeah, they still have quite many years left, I would say. And they probably make pretty decent money doing it, so why give
Hmm.
it up to someone else if you can
They're
keep
not
doing it?
training new people at all.
No, no, not at all.
Okay.
Unless
Yeah.
someone dies.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
no,
probably
no.
good
But I
that they
mean,
are very experienced.
but it's a pretty good idea for a novel or a movie.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, kind of like a murder mystery thing. You wanted to
Hmm.
kill him because you wanted his job. Yeah. Yeah.
Desperate
But sadly,
times.
yeah, but sadly that's not or maybe it's a good thing that's not the part of the murder that I'm going to talk about in this in this podcast today. But okay. So, geologically, because of course I have to mention geology, this cave is part of the Tapir Mountain Reserve and it's located in the foothills of the Maya Mountains. And the Maya Mountains are primarily made of Paleozoic granite and Cretaceous limestones and sediments. So, um, yeah, so most of Belize's like landmass is made of limestone, which, is like an ancient reminder that Belize was once covered, in a shallow sea because limestone uh, is made from organic matter from the ocean. So, like seashells and creatures and whatever. So that's, where you get it from. And the limestone formations were uplifted on the northern flanks of the Maya Mountains and then partly eroded by water. So, yeah. And then this results in karst topography, which is usually characterized by caves and sinkholes. And this is like quite common in China, like around the world, there's karst topography. And it usually, like, there's some quite amazing geology and geological formations, for instance, in like China and Asia in general, for instance. So basically, anywhere that there used to be an ancient sea, you'll probably have some karst topography. Geology rocks. Okay, I had to put that in there. So, something you might have knowledge of, or like maybe have seen before, is the cenotes. It's this kind of, or actually another common sinkhole would actually be is it I forgot the actual name of it. Like the big hole in Belize, like this, it's called the Blue Hole, I believe it's called. It's like this popular diving place in Belize. And that's actually a giant sinkhole. And so these cenotes is common, in Mexico quite often. Like people, go, they go swimming in them and whatnot. And it was also a common place because, like I said, still bodies of water. You kind of like just, sinkhole and then it's filled with water. These still places of water were seen by the Maya as entrances to Xibalba. So a lot of times you'll find, ancient remains or something in the bottoms of these cenotes because, you toss a body in there because it's a sacrifice to the gods of Xibalba.
I was just commenting. It resembles actually the eh, old Finnish, I mean, pretty ancient Finnish way of burying or sacrificing people. It was also like dumping bodies to these big water holes.
Mm.
There
Yeah.
is one famous place in Eira? No, not Eira in Helsinki.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
Anyway,
Really rare.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So that's also
Yeah.
something that's kind of maybe common in many places. Who knows? This
Yeah.
water
Yeah. I
water
could see that.
association and other world and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think like the thing with all of these cultures around the world, you can always make some connections. There's always some similarities, which I find very, very interesting, like historically speaking or evolutionarily thinking, even that, like none of our thoughts and ideas, especially when it comes to religion or beliefs, are not unique, you know? They're always reused
Mm.
in a different way in different cultures,
Yeah.
which I find very fascinating. And yeah, even though I'm like technically a heathen, I still like the like to research religions and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, sure, it
but
tells a lot about like human behavior and just kind
yeah,
of thinking in
yeah.
general.
When I visited the cave, I saw like a lot of limestone conglomerate rocks, which had some igneous and sedimentary inclusion. So basically, conglomerate rock is a sedimentary rock. Okay, I'm just going back into geology. Woo. Uh, I rarely get to talk about geology in a murder podcast, so this is great. So yeah, the conglomerate rocks were basically, bits and pieces of different rocks, and they're kind of stuck together and form a sedimentary rock that has a lot of different pieces into it. So I noticed that there was a lot of that when we're walking through the cave. And also due to the chemistry of the cave, limestone and etc. There were plenty of stalactites forming and stalagmites. And I'm gonna put you guys on the spot. Do you remember which ones are which? Which ones are
No
from the top
idea.
and which ones are the bottom?
I'm not even gonna try. And I don't even know these terms in English at all, I have to say, so I
But you
couldn't
know
guess.
what I'm talking about, right? Or
The yes,
yeah, yes, okay.
yes,
Perfect to motion on a podcast, yeah,
yes, sure.
yes, exactly. Okay, well, I'll just continue on. So basically, uh, one way to remember the difference between stalagmites and stalactites is that stalactites, they hang tight from the ceiling. They're hanging tight. So that's the one that comes from the ceiling is a stalactite, and then a stalagmite is the one from the floor. So just kind of remember that like you're hanging
And
there, hanging tight.
what's the pun for that? The bottom one.
I don't think
No
there
pun.
is one. Yeah, no pun, just the stalactite, and then the other one is the
Okay,
other one. So just at least I always remember that. Yeah. Anyway, and now you will too. So
maybe.
uh, maybe yeah, I'll ask you after the end of this.
Oh
So
no, need to take notes.
yeah, aren't you? Don't you? Every time that I
Not
speak.
enough, not enough.
All the words.
Yeah. Okay. So the stalactites, since they're coming from the roof of the cave, what do these kind of look like? They look like roots of a tree, possibly, right? And remember when I said that, the ceiba tree and how the roots reach down into the underworld? Well, there's many points I could make about like the symbolism between, water seemingly spreading from the rocks because, the stalactites form when water seeps down through the limestone and they drip and they drip and they drip and they grow so slowly, but it's from that water and the sediment that it kind of, like collects on the end. So it grows very slowly, but how interesting is that the water is creating something and it's dripping from this rock that is possibly the roots of the earth and whatnot. So, and there's also the water dripping can also seen as like blood from the earth because, the earth is, you can like make all these kind of comparisons between like what actually is like if the world is living, if the earth is living, if the cave is living, then what else would these droplets be but the blood of the cave or the life essence of the cave and the life tree and whatnot? So you can kind of go on and on.
They
Yeah.
are period blood because it's the
Yeah.
warmth, right?
Yes, exactly. Or
Mhm.
that too. So yeah. Yeah. So and as it pools, you can kind of like it can collect in these rimstone dams, so these like small pools. I don't know, in the cave, you'll see some photos if you search ATM cave or Actun Tunichil Muknal cave. You'll see that there's like these kind of cascades, like these these almost like waterfall looking things, and these pools of water, or ancient water used to be in those, and those are called rimstone dams. And once again, you have this pool of water that's still, and once more, you have a portal or a sacred body of water that is now this liminal space between the spiritual world and the real world. So, yeah. And then another point that I wanted to make, that stalactites, they grow very, very slowly. So they approximately grow. I mean, it's different for the amount of rain that you get each year, right? So in this area, I think it's quite commonly referred to that it only like grows about 0.13 millimeters a year, stalactites. So the cave, even from 1,000 years ago, doesn't look that different, drastically different. I mean, like only like a couple, okay, not a couple inches, but you know what I mean, like maybe a foot or a meter or something, different than what we would see today, which is quite interesting too. Once more, going back to the mythos of the cave before I get into the death and whatnot, and holy shit, I have a lot of information. I'm sorry. Uh, so due to the importance of the cave, and even though we say like the symbolism today, the Maya cave was very real to them, and like I said, in their minds, just to remember and bring this point up again, that the cave was part of the underworld and the gods were alive, and especially when visiting them in their dwellings, e.g., like these caves, the rituals and sacrifices to honor the gods was taken very seriously, especially when it was done in these caves. So let's just imagine. Let's just like take you into this cave. Imagine a completely dark cave, where you think and that the gods live. And of course, other nasty, underworldly beings. And the only light that you see is by the fire that you managed to take with you. And it was probably, like a torch or something, right? And you're wading through the water and you're crossing other hazardous rocks and climbing under stuff, maybe even half submerging yourself and trying to, scramble over rocks, under rocks. And you say goodbye to sunlight as you travel 800 meters or maybe even a kilometer from the mouth of the cave into the cave itself. And to purify the air and to set a mood for the ritual, you light copal incense and place different offerings in the form of food around the cave in earthenware vessels. And the most important food being, of course, corn. So basically, the archaeological remains show that a lot of the earthenware, so there was a lot of these vases and earthenware jars and jugs that were intentionally like carried into the cave, that they were filled with food and different offerings and stuff, and then they were destroyed. And there's like evidence of these kill holes. So basically, they were punctured or pierced in order to shatter them. And the full reason why these earthenware vessels were destroyed isn't really known. But it's perhaps maybe because you needed to be, dead in order to cross the underworld. So you needed to destroy the thing so then it could be used by the other worlds. Maybe.
Hmm.
But
They killed the
when you go in
ways.
there, like, huh?
So they basically killed the ways, like
Yeah,
symbolically.
basically, yeah. Yeah. And maybe I'm being too like poetic about all this shit and, being too like I don't know, trying to
I
draw too
mean,
many
the
conclusions from
whole
things.
mythology is kind of poetic in itself, so it would make
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that I'm saying probably isn't fully backed up by scientific. It's kind of like, what makes sense to people, like if you put yourself into the mindset of the Maya, or, you try to think of what is the most important and you try to, explain that in what we see today. So that's what I'm
Hmm.
trying to do with this, but yeah.
Speculation. Isn't that what we do?
Yeah, this is mere speculation, yes. So throughout the cave, like there are thousands, like maybe even 14,000 or more different shards. Like it's difficult to tell because if you've taken a look at any pictures of the cave, there's just a fine covering in calcite, like the crystals that appear when you have the limestone and like whatnot. There's just like a fine covering, so you can't really tell exactly how many shards there are because there's probably a lot covered underneath all of the calcite crystals. But at some point, there's been some archaeological digs and whatnot and excavations that there's, approximately 14,000, more than that, thousands and thousands of different shards from pottery. But there are even some intact pieces of pottery, but why these pieces are intact is still kind of unknown. Yeah, but it's been helpful to date these pots because a lot of them still have a bit of like remnants in them, because they used to carry food, so there's a little bit of residue or whatever that that you can still carbon date. So it appears that through carbon dating that there was a bit of an uptick during the latter part of the 250 AD to 909-ish range, which means that there was so closer to the 980, like 800 to 900, which means that there was an increase that could have been due to the collapse of the Maya in the area at the time, so that there was like an increase in the offerings. So therefore means that there was some hard times happening around this area for the people living here. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting too. Okay. So now we, went through all the background stuff and there's been no killing yet, but now we're going to get into not killing yet, but we're going to get into other stuff that was sacrificed. And then murder. Okay. So another commonly accepted practice was priests or monarchs would often participate in personal bloodletting or auto-sacrifice ceremonies. So, blood was also seen as nourishment to the gods, and it was also, like many things, a conduit between the natural and the supernatural realm. So much like water, in the natural environment, in the supernatural environment, blood is also, this thing that, can carry you between the different realms. And remember that stele that I had mentioned previously that was carved into kind of resembling a stingray spine? Well, the stingray was also a sacred messenger in the Maya culture. And so to compound these kind of connections between the supernatural realms, so you have, blood and you have the stingray, which is a sacred messenger. A lot of the priests would either pierce their own tongue or pierce their own scrotum with the stingray spine in order to produce blood. So, that's kind of like was like a common practice where they would, take the barb of a, or like the stingray spine and just, yeah, pierce themselves.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And of course, stingray spines are venomous, like, before they've been defleshed. So, they have like these barbs on them. They're kind of, yeah, poisonous. But it could still be like a dangerous tool to use. I mean, back in those days, I'm sure there wasn't a lot of. I mean, okay, there was hygiene, of course. Like there was a lot of stuff you could use for like ancient remedies and stuff to take care of wounds and whatever. But you're still piercing like anatomy today. If you pierce your tongue and you get it wrong, you could go like, you could hit a nerve or something. At least we know of the nerve systems in the body, so it's kind of a bit dangerous to be fishing around with a stingray spine in your mouth or
Yeah.
your scrotum. So yeah, could be dangerous. Yeah, but yeah,
Stingrays
interesting
are
all
so
the same.
cute.
Yeah, they really are. I saw an eagle ray when I was in Belize when I was diving. That was really really cute. They're even cuter because they have like the nose on them or like the beak thing that they yeah. Anyway,
So this is about the murder of the
so
stingray. They murdered the stingray to get the sting.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And
horrible.
also like other things like so they would do this within this cave and then it was also quite common So, you've probably seen like these quote unquote pyramids of the Maya, right? Well, they're temples or
Yeah.
tombs, so they weren't regarded as pyramids like you would regard the Egyptian pyramids. They're actual tombs, so there's people buried underneath them. And in order to
I-
yeah, do
Isn't
the same
isn't
type of
the
rituals.
pyramids of the Egyptians the same? I mean,
Yeah,
that
that's
they're
what I
Yeah,
tombs.
but
was
the thing
thinking too.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. But like what I mean is more like people always like say the Maya pyramids, but it's not a pyramid. Like they refer to them as like Maya temples or Maya
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
it's a different
tombs
Like the
or
type of
term is
yeah.
not
building.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, the term is incorrect. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. But good correction, yeah. So um the priests would also, or any of the higher chieftains or whatever, they would also do this on top of the temples. They would, impale themselves or, do bloodletting ceremonies on top of these too, apparently. So, but it was quite common to use a stingray spine because, once again, it's a messenger from the gods and stuff. So, and cute. I think they chose them because they're cute. Or
Mm.
maybe they didn't. Maybe they hated them because they killed them. Okay, whatever. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. Um, but now to the main attraction that I have been alluding to this whole time. So the reason why this place is called a sepulcher is that there's supposedly 16 human remains, like 16 humans. So not just 16 pieces of a human, but like actual 16 individual humans
Hmm.
remains that call the cave, their final resting place. So some places say that there was 14, but then the guide that I had in the cave, he said 16. So I don't know who to believe. I don't know if it's like just kind of and then once again, of course, it's a bit difficult because a lot of stuff is covered in calcite. So it's kind of like I don't know who to believe. I don't know who to believe unless
Well,
I
I
do
mean,
my
you said that their training was 20 years ago. Maybe there's updated information and they just haven't heard of it.
But there has been a little bit of updated information, like what they used to refer to some skeletons as. Okay, but yeah, true. Yes. Um, so we'll just go with 16. We'll go with 16.
Could be
So
15.
could be true, or maybe we should take the average 15. 15 human remains of different remains. So scientists say, and I guess they could do this by looking possibly like at the stalactite growth due to because those once again like they depend upon the water, the rainfall of the season. So the rainfall goes down through the soil and then drips into the cave and then blah 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 creates stalactites, etc. There's more to it than that, but I'm dumbing it down. But since they're dependent upon water, you can kind of see the growth almost like a tree, like the growth rings about how like it kind of uh almost like a candle or something. There's like
Hmm.
different layers to a candle, and the more you
Hmm.
dip it equals like a
Yeah.
bigger and fatter candle, right? Um, so there was apparently like a 60-year period preceding 811 AD where there was significantly less or almost no rainfall in this area. So with the population that I said like was estimated to be around 2 million compared to the 441,471 of year 2020, there was potentially a lot of strain on the environment and the resources because, due to the slash and burn agriculture that they used, I mean, it results in a lot of soil erosion and you use a lot of land. And if you have no water, then you're kind of fucked anyway.
Hmm.
And I mean, some other places, like there's another ruined site that I went to called Lamanai, and that's located on the quote unquote new river. And that apparently didn't have as much hard times compared to other areas because it was right on the river and they depended upon the river so much that it didn't really dry up. They didn't have this like lot of sacrifices and stuff like that. They didn't need to appease the gods as much. So they didn't really have human sacrifice, or that's at least one of the guides said that there's not a lot of human sacrifice in that area because they weren't really dependent upon,
Yeah.
appeasing the gods as much. So yeah.
Dependent. We don't need your support. Kind of.
Yeah, we got it handled. Or maybe they thought that, oh, the gods are happy with us right now,
Yeah. Let's just
just
keep doing what
keep on
we've
trucking
done.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Keep
Don't
the status
fix
quo.
something that's not broken.
Exactly. Yeah. So of these 16, 15, 14, whatever skeletons, there are infants, and one is approximately 1 year old, and others are under the age of 5 years old, which, if you think about it, also in other cultures, this is probably seen as like an ultimate, or like, the pure sacrifice.
Hmm.
The children or the babies haven't been, you know, tainted by life, and they're pure. So in order to like a really one second. Astrid's going crazy. She's like running up on the trunk and then running back and running up and then running back. I'm like, dear fucking
I
god, I haven't
heard a
seen her
little bit
move
of a
that quickly in
noise,
ages.
but it wasn't that loud. I thought it was
Yeah.
Eddie just kind of walking around.
Nope, it's Astrid. I just see like a fucking gray blur like next to me. Okay. Whew. Yeah. It's not even their dinner time. Okay. Anyway. So yes.
To just gather some energy.
Yeah. So yeah, so they were seen as like, pure sacrifice, and, this could be the ultimate appeasal of the gods if you sacrifice your own baby, right? So maybe there was even more difficult times, or I'm kind of curious at what point. Like, I don't think they can actually check because, like I said, the calcification or the calcite crystals of these bones, it's quite difficult to probably date them exactly,
Like in comparison to each other,
Yeah, into
the
comparison
remains.
to each other,
Yeah.
I think, because of course different parts of the cave have a bit different water flow or something, which
Hmm.
means more calcites, and you can't really. It's all okay. You
So you
can
don't
probably
know if they
scientifically,
started off with
yeah,
like older people and then ended up like towards the when they were really, really desperate, then they started
yeah,
sacrificing babies. Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's
So,
try
I mean,
sacrificing grandma first, then auntie, and okay, let's go with little
yeah,
sister. But I don't know.
yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of I can like probably no contraception or not
Mm,
as efficient as we have nowadays. So maybe people have or they give birth to lots of kids. So at some point you're like, it's desperate times. I already have 5 kids. Oh, the sixth was born. Well, I will give it to cards so the previous kids can still get food.
yeah.
I mean,
I
that's of
mean, it
course
also,
you believe that it will have some impact on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
card.
and
yeah.
I mean,
But it's still kind of the
yeah,
more valuable human, I guess, than grandma.
yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
it
and
sounds bad, but
but I mean, also you can kind of think of it too as the other point, like maybe the people wanted to be sacrificed, maybe that thought it was the ultimate honor
mhm.
to sacrifice to a god. So not as like a punishment, but actually like,
Mm.
yes, I get to, favor the gods with my child as well. That could also be
Yeah,
a
true,
factor in
true.
this. Yeah.
Mm.
But
I mean, yeah, also like the
yeah.
bloodletting was a thing and people did
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
voluntarily, I assume.
Yeah. Yeah. They were really big on the voluntary blood sacrifices, so it wasn't a against your will kind of thing. So, yeah. A lot of the older skeletons, they show evidence of a killing blow. So same thing, that I said that was with the ceramic vessels. And this killing blow was usually in the head where, blunt force trauma, where they were bludgeoned and hopefully killed quickly. But yeah, like a lot of these skeletons have probably moved due to the course of years, and like in the cave, do we, the build up of calcite and like the different flows of water, etc. Um, so it's kind of like hard to piece like all of the skeletons together because there's quite many pieces of different skeletons throughout the cave. And a lot of them are like placed kind of near these pools, like these pools of water where they would have been, like so once again towards the portal of the underworld, etc. So you kind of had this motif appearing again, sacrifice and then bringing them to the underworld, etc. So yeah, that's kind of important. And then the most famous skeleton is the quote unquote crystal maiden. So I think once you Google ATM cave, that's the skeleton that always appears. Like it's you know fully extended skeleton. It's on its back, etc. And it's entirely encrusted with calcite crystals. So that's why they call it the crystal maiden, because it's completely encrusted in crystals. And it was originally thought to be a woman, but this has been questioned in recent years. And people thought it was a female because of the short stature and like the general size of it, but it could also be, a male. So they're thinking it actually is more proportionately a male than a female. So there's still, research and stuff going on today about these victims of sacrifice. So, and like I said, this victim is like the only fully extended visible skeleton in the entire cave. So like the whole skeleton is there, you know. Um, and the position itself is important because it alludes, what was done to this skeleton during the actual sacrifice. So yeah, let's just say that this particular person didn't have an easy time in the cave because apparently, okay, they might have been clubbed to death or not, I don't know. Or there's evidence that the chest cavity was opened up so that the heart could be revealed and taken out. So whether that was done pre or post mortem, I don't know if we'll know. But I mean, like, it could also be like another part of the sacrifice that okay, you
Mhm.
do the bloodletting and stuff and opening the beating heart or this type of thing, like for
Yeah.
theatrics and whatever. So yeah, who knows? But it's quite an impressive skeleton, and it's quite impressive. Like in the cave, you're literally like feet away from these ancient victims. Like it's all open. They're not in museums because they can't really take them out of the calcite. They're there.
Mhm.
They're just yeah. It's kind of insane.
But still, they're so because, like you said, that you're not allowed to take any objects into the cave, but still, I mean, people can damage things even if they don't have a camera with themselves. So I think, I don't know, it's still kind of
Yeah.
risky to let all the tourists in.
Yeah, I mean, they're such small groups, like a group of like 10 or something, I think is what I saw maximum. And then the tour guide is like, you're watching and you're like at least a meter away, I think, from the Crystal Maiden, or like half a meter or something away from the Crystal Maiden. And then the other ones you're not as close, like, or you're a bit closer, but there's like a bit of like a tape that you're not supposed to cross, so it's kind of like the guy's
Mhm.
watching you quite carefully and whatnot. So yeah, it's kind of hard to fuck up something there.
Yeah, sounds like a stressful job.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's Belize, man. It's quite relaxed and everything. So
Mm.
yeah, it's very relaxed actually. Like everybody's fucking chill. So yeah, it's the Caribbean, so it's kind of goes without saying. Um, So whether these, sacrifices were to appease the rain god Chalk or gods of the underworld, there is still like another theory of why, these could have been. And I found this on Atlas Obscura, so I don't know how like, you know, how great this source is. But some of these victims could have been witches and possibly suffering either from some mental or physical ailment. And then leaving them unburied in the cave would ensure that their spirits were trapped there. So I don't know if that really fits the mythology. Like if we talk about, cave systems and the cave is actually the entrance to the underworld and you're supposed to, you can go down to the 9 levels of the underworld and then be reborn. I don't think I I don't think I follow that line of logic. When it comes to a line of logic in mythology, but yeah. So I don't know if I follow that quite. Yeah. And I also don't know if this was just the tour guide or if there was like actual evidence of this. I'm trying to like I was trying to remember this when I was writing these notes, and or if I'm just getting this confused with like the accounts of the babies, because I don't think the babies had any kill markings on their skulls, so which means that they were probably left there swaddled and left to cry and starve
Mhm.
or to death, right? So I don't know if it was just a mix up because of that or if it was like my own imagination. But all I could think about is like, could there have been a victim that was placed in the cave, bound, and then they had to deal with starving to death because there was no way to find your way out of the cave. Like you're in a kilometer deep into the cave. There's no light. It was fucking difficult to get in there even with a light.
Mhm.
Like how many times I bashed my head, and thank God I had a fucking hard hat because I would have brained myself like multiple times. um yeah, so finding your way out without any light. So like,
And also,
yeah,
if
so I
they're
don't remember.
bound, it's not like you can just, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you could technically maybe like scrape off the bindings or loosen them eventually. Who knows? But, and I was just thinking, like, was this actually a victim that had evidence that they were just left there without any kill blow? But anyway, I just don't remember
Mhm.
if that was the case or if I'm just remembering incorrectly. But naturally, when I was, making my way out of the cave, all I could imagine was, what if I was this person, 1,000 and some years ago, and having slipped my bindings and making my way back through the cave. And I just could imagine myself, you know, if I didn't have my light on, I was trying to use my senses, like my sense of touch and my sense of hearing, trying to kind of like disregard my sense of sight. And I could just imagine trying to imagine myself like blindly fumbling along the rocks and trying to feel, the gentle sweep of the flow of the river to see, okay, then that means out. That's the
Mhm.
exit of the cave is somewhere downstream, and hoping that I would make it out of the cave alive, and knowing like indeed how difficult it was, with light, and making it out of the cave would be completely impossible. So that was just like all I could think about when I was making my way out of the cave. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, why does my mind have to go here and like try to do that? I just yeah. But
Anxiety.
yeah. Yeah.
But also imagine if someone succeeded, like getting
Yeah.
out of the cave.
Maybe someone
Yeah.
did. They are not
Maybe someone
Yeah.
did. Yeah,
there
we don't know.
I
for
ha-
us to.
I have to believe that there was someone who made it out. I just want to believe, like, out of all the sacrifices and people and whatever, that indeed that they were.
Like, what would the
Yeah.
other people think that, oh my God, a gift from the gods? Or,
Yeah, something. I mean, fuck. Yeah.
Or maybe they just
Uh,
run to the other direction, like, "I don't wanna see my relatives or village people ever again after what they did to me."
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
but then if people went there possibly voluntarily,
Yeah.
But would they
Yeah,
start
true.
trying to get out then, if they went there
Yeah, I
voluntarily?
mean,
but then you get
self-preservation.
desperate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lots
yeah.
of religious things happen, voluntarily
Mm,
because there's the pressure of the community, but you don't
Yeah.
really want
yeah.
to do it.
Mm, yeah. Okay, that's kind of all I have for you today. So that was a lot of information.
Yeah.
So, Victoria, which one grows from the ceiling, stalactite or stalagmite?
From the ceiling, it's a stalactite.
Yeah.
You have to hang tight. And yeah, I looked them up, and actually looked at the Hungarian names, which are completely different, but I see this like version of it that's pretty similar to the English term. And I don't think I've heard that before, but it could be that I was just not really paying attention in high school. That's entirely possible. But yeah,
Yeah.
learned a lot of new things today.
Yeah. Glad I could
Yeah,
be
yeah.
of teaching service.
Oh, I want to add, uh, now I remembered and Googled the Finnish pit that had the bodies. It's called
Mm,
Levänluhdan muinaisjäännökset. So Levänluhta
mm,
is the place,
mm.
which is
Okay.
like basically a deep, uh, just a hole with full of water and full of skeletons. And apparently,
Mm,
because of geological things that you would probably get excited about, they were very
yeah.
well preserved, like because of what
Mm,
the ground was. But it's
yeah.
unknown whether they were sacrifice or whether it was like a grave. And there were
Mm,
also children. So
yeah. That's very so
interesting.
shall I cover that one next? Huh? Huh?
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah. I
Huh?
mean, it's apparently very rare in the like Western or like in Europe that people would have been buried in water. Like, so this is a huge archaeological finding.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I could think about is like the bog people, for instance. I think that's partly in UK and whatnot.
Yeah,
That's like the
yeah,
only uh anaerobic settings where bodies have been found and preserved and whatever. But I mean, it's a bit different because obviously the different okay, whatever. We're not going to go into it. But yeah,
I'm sure we
interesting.
would
Yeah,
find
I'll have to.
other similar things around the world. But this was something just I
Yeah,
remember I read this book about kind of like ancient Finland and it was there and then when you told about this it came into my mind.
So, okay, so maybe like, can you tell us about how was it in this cave? Because I think you mentioned before when we first talked about it that sometimes, like in some parts, you actually have to swim.
yeah.
So, yeah, how was it? How was the
Okay, so
experience?
uh, I mean, okay, yeah. So you have a hard hat and your headlamp on, and you're instructed to have some shoes and clothes that you can get completely soaked in because yeah, you had to swim. Like one of the parts of water, I don't know, was at least a couple meters deep
Oh,
or a
so you
little bit
actually have
more.
to be able to swim, not just
Yeah, yeah,
the word, not just walk in the water.
yeah. No, like actually swim in. And at the beginning, that's like at the very entrance of the cave because there's like this kind of like where you can still see daylight. That's where you had to swim and then swim across, and then it starts to get dark and whatever. And there's like multiple points where you have to use your physical strength to climb up, or there's rocks where you have to like sit on the ground and like kind of scooch along and like squeeze through cracks. And it was like if you have any type of claustrophobia, I would say
Um,
there's
no.
some hairy points that you couldn't do it, maybe.
Mhm.
Especially
And
like
it's not
one
like you
where you
can
had to
just
like,
turn back, can you?
no, yeah,
I'll just wait
no,
for you here until
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
do your thing.
yeah, like, yeah. I mean, I was really proud of my mom because we did this. My mom wanted to do this for her 59th birthday, so we actually did it on January 24th for her birthday, like on the day. So I was really proud of her to be able to do it. So I mean, it's like moderately hard, difficult. I mean, for me, it wasn't that difficult. Like I could, do it. I wasn't sore the next day or anything like that. But uh, I think if you're like not as physically fit or something, then you could be sore because it's like a lot of muscles you're probably not used to using. Like you have to lift yourself up quite a lot and, kind of like use your legs. If you're a bit more comfortable with a bit of bouldering or something slightly, then it's a bit easier than bouldering. But yeah, just,
It's still like
making
1 kilometer, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
there is points of like walking, but there's a lot of points where you have to, climb up and then okay, walk a little bit and then okay, now we have to go down, sit on your butt and then kind of like slide down a little bit of a wall and then okay, now you have to go on this rock and okay, to make sure that you have the at least 3 points of contact, like 2 hands and a foot at least, touching some surface so you don't fall or fuck. Like I hit my shin so many fucking times and my knee. Like that's the only annoying part because you're like, you know, you're trying to go along it and then you're like, oh fuck my knee, fuck, ow, my fucking patella, like, ah shit, and then like you just bump into things. So it wasn't like
Mhm.
sore from muscles, but it was more sore from like bruises and shit. And like I said, I'm so fucking happy I had the hard hat. I would have like I seriously would have had a fucking concussion if I didn't have a hard hat on because it's just so difficult to see the different perspective like around you. Like, okay, how the fuck am I, supposed
Yeah.
to get around this rock and whatever. And
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, there's even some points where you had to be like, to your neck in water or like upper chest, and then you had to like kind of slide sideways just so that the your head could fit, sideways, and you had to like kind of be under the water and like shimmy sideways to like get through. Yeah, so
So
there's
do
some
they
fun
tell
parts.
you like what's the size limit, so to speak, before you go into this
Oh yeah,
cave?
true.
Because
Like,
I mean, some
is there?
people would just not fit through these like really narrow places, probably.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the tour guides was a pretty big guy and he made it through. Like I don't know how many kilos he was, but I mean, he wasn't like a skinny guy by any means. I would say he's like,
Do they warn you that like there are like really
oh,
narrow places? So
So
no.
they're
I
not
mean,
that
you can technically,
narrow then. I mean
yeah.
narrow, but like if you were that big of a figure, probably it
yeah,
will also limit your physical ability so
yes,
much that you wouldn't
Mhm.
go there
yes,
in the first place.
Okay.
yes, 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 yeah, 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 yeah. So I
Not
think it's
not
pretty much
everyone is
good for,
smart. Not everyone knows
yeah,
their limits. Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering like
Yeah.
how frequent are accidents there, like in some form.
yeah. I
'Cause it
mean, I
sounds a
was
little
reading.
bit dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it can be, of course. Like you can twist an ankle or fuck up your like fall and break a limb or something like that. But yeah, I mean, as long as you feel like you're up to it, I think like if you put your mind to it, you can of course do it. It'll be taxing for people a bit older, of course, and not physically fit. But like for someone my age, and I mean, I'm not super fit. I mean, whatever, like as I used to be, but it wasn't a big issue for me. I thought it was like a mild, moderate,
Mhm.
cave experience, but I think my mom maybe could have thought it was difficult. So just depends on your age and your physical fitness, I guess.
So you
Yeah.
don't need to have like any extra fitness, but kind of like if you feel okay in your daily life, like
Yeah.
physically, then it's probably okay.
Yeah. 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 And I
If
recommend
you're
doing it too. And
adventurous
it's
enough.
really, really beautiful like area as well. And I think it's just worth a visit for sure.
Okay. Do
Yeah.
we want
So
to add anything else?
no, just thanks for listening and sorry if I tried to be very overreaching with all the Maya stuff. So if I fuck something up, just let me know. But I tried to be respectful of everything. So yeah. So thanks for
Yeah,
listening
thank
and
you. Thank you for doing all this
who's
research.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
definitely
yeah,
learned a lot today from a lot of different areas.
yeah. I mean, this is kind of my I love this type of stuff, especially geology and archaeology. That's like like yeah, give it to me. Um so
Good that we have different interests on this podcast. No, I mean
yeah.
it is interesting, but like I'm personally not like that much into it that I would actually take the time to look it up myself. So it's nice to hear about it from someone
Yeah.
else.
I mean, I was like doing some research. I was like, oh, should I go into more about the karst topography, about the Maya mountain? I was like, no, I don't think anybody wants to hear that. It's
It's
not
gonna
a
be a spin-off
geology
podcast.
podcast. Yeah, I was trying to be very, very, very frugal with like, okay, some conglomerate rocks and this type of stuff. But I was like, oh, dear God, this. Okay, yeah, so much stuff. Yeah. So who's going next week?
I'm going next week, and I have like a couple of cases in mind, so I don't know if I'm gonna give you a very specific hint, but most likely it's gonna be, well, it's from Hungary and it's going to be from like the mid 20th century,
Okay.
around that time. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I have a few ideas and I need to decide. I'm gonna do that over the weekend.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give maybe a little bit more specific hint on Instagram.
Okay. That's a deal. Okay. So yeah, thanks for listening this week. And once again, you can follow us on Instagram at Translation Murder Podcast, or you can send us an email at translationmurderpodcast@gmail.com. You can check out our website at translationmurderpodcast.com. And yeah, just, send us a mail. Not actual physical mail, but email, an electronic mail. But what's something they should not send us, Petra?
Dick pics, not
Yep.
electronic or real photos.
Oh, I was gonna say unless it's like like a printed out like picture, and then you
I
mail
mean,
it to us, then it's fine.
yeah. No, that would be creepy. Like, why do you know my address? Don't just no.
What about a cartoon drawing that's sent to us, like and then you take a picture and then you send it to us? It's not an actual. Okay, anyway. Okay.
That's also fine.
I'm just giving people ideas. Okay, yeah, all right. So none of
Yeah.
that.
Stop
So
stop
okay,
giving ideas.
okay, cool. All right. Thanks again for listening. Okay. Hey, paralla.
Bye.
Moro.